She believes in equality, unless you bring up the military draft. Accountability is her kryptonite. Therapists call her a walking gold mine. She thinks sleeping with dozens of men empowers her, and even the men she sleeps with agree. She shouts her abortions, and let's just say she shouts a lot. She's a happiness coach, even though she's miserable. She was taught there's over 70 genders in college, and it costs tens of thousands of dollars to learn. She self-diagnoses and likes telling everyone about it. She hates when men objectify women's bodies, but for $4.99 a month, you can objectify hers. She calls herself a boss-ass bitch. Others just call her a bossy bitch. She has a lot of cats, but not nearly as many as she will have. She has a dad, but she doesn't really talk to him. He doesn't think we live in World War II Germany. No, she thinks we live in an even worse time and place. She nags to go on podcasts to debate, and then sues them when she loses. Her OnlyFans is worth less than a McDonald's breakfast. She likes black men until they display misogyny. Then she calls the cops, who are all bastards, by the way. She is the most feminist woman in the world.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever this video finds you. Welcome to Ticks. Let's try this again. Because when I started at 9 o'clock, it's now 12:50 in the morning, my internet went haywire and then was gone. Because that's the one thing that grinds my gears here in Georgia, is that when it rains, you can pretty much count on a wonky internet service. Yeah, I would definitely not make it in the Philippines. At any rate, so let's start over, shall we? Let's get right to it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. How are you? Good to see all of you. What we've witnessed President Trump accomplish over the last few days has been nothing short of remarkable. We are now 3.5 years into the war between Russia and Ukraine, a brutal conflict that has claimed hundreds of thousands of Russian and Ukrainian lives and cost trillions of dollars. The weakness and incompetence of Joe Biden foolishly allowed the killing to start in the first place. Until President Trump returned to office in January, the bloody and broken Biden status quo was to endlessly force American taxpayers to fund Ukraine no matter the cost, no matter how long it takes, and no matter how many lives were lost. There is no denying that Biden's America Last foreign policy moved the world further away from peace. President Trump rejected that failed approach, and instead, over the last 7 months, has relentlessly pursued peace throughout his second term. And thanks to President Trump's efforts, we finally have movement after years of deadly gridlock. On Friday, as you all know, many of you were there, President Trump hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, for a bilateral meeting. This was the first time President Putin has been to the United States since 2015, and the first time he has met with an American president in years. President Putin publicly confirmed what President Trump has said all along. The war between Russia and Ukraine never would have started in the first place if President Trump were in office. This was always obvious to any person with a shred of common sense. Just look at what took place during the last 4 administrations. Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. President Trump is the only president this century, Republican or Democrat, who has held Russia in check and ensured peace in Europe. That's because Russia has always greatly respected President Trump and his peace through strength foreign policy approach. But overall, the bilateral talks in Alaska were very productive, and multiple key points were agreed to between the two leaders that truly opened up the door for phase 2 discussions, which took place yesterday here at the White House, within 48 hours of that meeting in Anchorage, I may add. As you all know, there were many European leaders here, as well as Ukrainian President Zelensky. They all traveled here to meet with President Trump to maintain the momentum and work toward a lasting peace. Across the board, every leader credited President Trump for his decisive leadership that has reignited the dialogue in hopes of finally bringing this war to a peaceful conclusion. 2 quotes in particular capture the progress that was made and the optimism moving forward. Finnish President Alexander Stubb said, "I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have had in the past 3.5 years. Again, that is the president of Finland, a country that shares a border with Russia. That's what we call the President Trump effect. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte also summed it up well. Without President Trump, this deadlock with Putin would not have been broken. He is the only one who could do this." Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelensky, and President Trump. As the president said, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Witkoff will continue to coordinate with Russia and Ukraine to make this happen as soon as possible. It's very important to remember that before President Trump's landslide victory last November, there was no end in sight to this bloodshed. Now, there may finally be light at the end of the tunnel and an opportunity for lasting peace. That's because President Trump is the peace president, and American leadership is back on the world stage. It should not be lost on anyone in this room that world leaders are coming right here to Washington, D.C. for help. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world. However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward.
Which is fine because MSNBC it's officially going kaput to MS Now. But we'll get into that. Let's see if she discusses it. I'm sorry, I have to interject because of copyright issues.
All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said. We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made, and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting, but it was not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight. In other news, on the home front, President Trump's efforts to make DC safe again are working. There have been a total of 465 arrests since the start of this operation on Thursday, August 7th. Last night, there were a total of 52 arrests, including the arrest of an illegal alien MS-13 gang member with convictions for DWI and drug possession. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and the outstanding work of both federal and local law enforcement, dangerous gang members like the one picked up last night will not be allowed on the streets of our nation's capital. Other arrests last night included assault with a deadly weapon for stabbing, parole violation for robbery, murder, outstanding warrant for attempted murder, assault on federal law enforcement officer, and felony assault. 4 more homeless encampments were also removed during yesterday's reporting period. To date, a total of 48 homeless encampments have been cleared in Washington, D.C. by multi-agency teams. MPD patrol units are actively working with city officials to locate and clear additional encampments and remove homeless residents off of Washington's streets. And despite fake narratives from the media, again, a significant number of the arrests have been in high crime areas of D.C. In fact, nearly half of all of the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8, the 2 wards that have the highest number of violent crime, as well as homicides and assaults with dangerous weapons last year. So while Democrats continue to coddle violent criminals, President Trump and this administration are focused on putting them behind bars and unapologetically standing up for the safety of law-abiding American citizens in the White House.
You know, this is like the one thing that has been perplexing me for, I would say, the past year, is that why is it that Democrats, mainly Black females, why do they defend, celebrate, promote, champion, and fight for criminality? I mean, we know that they engage in it as well, but I guess they're trying to protect their brothers, fathers, baby daddies, uncles, cousins, etc. Like, there was a girl who, she of course got arrested. She was being a agitator, a paid agitator. She caused some problems out there in DC. She got arrested for disorderly conduct. And there was a parade of Black people out there when she got released. For what? She's not a Rosa Parks. She's not a Malcolm X. She's a paid agitator. But I guess paid agitators stay together. I just work here. Let's go.
White House will continue to provide all of you with the results of this operation in the days ahead. So with that, I will take your questions today. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jack Posobiec, who joined us in Anchorage, Alaska last week. Jack, thanks for being here. Why don't you kick us off?
Caroline, thanks so much. So a couple of questions regarding the status of these peace talks. Obviously, we saw the president and President Putin there in Anchorage. We saw the world leaders here yesterday with this summit. We've heard phrases like coalition of the willing. We've also heard Article 5-like guarantees. When it comes to the security guarantees, what is the current status of that? I know the president earlier today mentioned boots on the ground would be UK, France, Germany possibly, but unequivocally said no US troops on the ground, but US coordination. Can you elaborate on that and what would the red lines be?
Sure.
All right. So before she answers this question, let's go through the roll. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've been here. So, of course, we got our California cutie right here. And, of course, we've got our shoes do not match our outfit female reporter here. Let's see here. There's a couple of people missing. Like, there is no Caitlin Collins to be a bugaboo. And it's not like she's on vacation. So she's not here. Okay, here's that one reporter. All right, I forget his name. Let's see. Peter Ducey. He's nowhere to be found. I don't see him anywhere to be found. So, and of course, we've got our speckles of color in here. But let's get to it. He asked, how come Trump is not going to send American human shields / peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, you got to the heart of what I was going to say to all of you today on security guarantees, which is the president has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The president understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace, and he has directed his national security team to coordinate with our friends in Europe and also to continue to cooperate and discuss these matters with Ukraine and Russia as well.
Caroline, now have the Russians responded at all? I know we spoke with President Putin last night. What has been their response? Because we've heard some reports from the Kremlin and others saying they're unequivocally against NATO troops on the ground.
Well, look, the president continues to have these conversations with both leaders. Those conversations took place in Anchorage, Alaska, again yesterday with the Europeans and President Zelensky, and he has directed his team to come up with a framework for these security guarantees that can be acceptable to help ensure a lasting peace and end this war.
And then just last question real quick on this. Regarding some of the funding, we're hearing questions about another round of weapon sales or possibly a round of U.S. purchases of Ukrainian drones. Will that money be funded by the U.S. taxpayers? Are we finally going to see an end to the U.S. taxpayer-funded, seemingly endless mandate for these farms?
I think he heard that question wrong. Why would we buy their drones? Anyway.
Well, the president is very sensitive to the needs of the American taxpayer. And immediately upon entering office back in January, he made it very clear that we're not going to continue writing blank checks to fund a war very far away, which is why he came up with the very creative solution to have NATO purchase American weaponry because it is the best in the world, and then to backfill the needs of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people and their military. So that's the solution the president has came up with. We'll continue to see that forward. As for any additional sales, I'll have to defer you to the Department of Defense. Thanks, Jack. Kelly.
What has President Trump learned that tells him that Vladimir Putin would be willing to make a deal for him, for President Trump?
Well, the president has learned a lot, which is part of the reason he opened up this dialogue. The previous administration, who oversaw the beginning of this war, refused to talk. And President Trump has always said, in order to learn, in order to move the ball forward with diplomacy and towards peace, you have to have open dialogue. And so that's why the president has had several conversations by phone and, of course, an in-person meeting last Friday with President Putin. He also has talked to President Zelensky dozens of times, had him here at the White House yesterday, and he's understanding what both sides want, what both sides are going to have to give up. And he has always said, in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. So he continues to learn a lot throughout these conversations, which is why we've seen progress from both sides. And I would also just add, when it comes to learning and moving the ball forward, look at how both Russia and Ukraine have actually talked directly for the first time in many years, thanks to the efforts of this president and this administration.
Specifically for President Trump, though, what do you think Putin's motivation is to try to do something for President Trump, as opposed to just resolving the conflict?
I think, as I just spoke to in my opening remarks, Kelly, Russia and all countries around this world actually respect the United States again. And the president is using the might of American strength to demand that respect from our allies, our friends, our adversaries all around the world. And we've seen that not just lead to progress with Russia and Ukraine, but also we've seen it in the closing of 7 global conflicts around the world as well. We've seen it with the release of hostages in Gaza. You've seen it with the end of the conflict between India and Pakistan, which could have resulted in a nuclear war if we had not had a president who believed in the strength and the leverage that comes with the job of being the president of the United States of America. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Heading into Alaska, a lot of the focus in the talk was on this trilateral meeting between these 3 leaders. Can you explain how this went from a trilateral meeting involving President Trump to now the focus being on this bilateral meeting without the president first?
Well, look, the president has spoken to both leaders about this, and both leaders have expressed a willingness to sit down with each other. And so our national security team will help both countries do that. Ultimately, the president has always said that there are areas of disagreement in this war that will have to be discussed and decided upon by these 2 countries. And so he wants these 2 countries to engage in direct diplomacy. He's said that from the very beginning, which is why he's agreeable to the idea of having President Zelensky and President Putin get together. And I understand accommodations for that meeting are underway. As soon as we hear more details, we'll be sure to let all of you know.
And just a quick
Right, because, I mean, as I keep reiterating, when Trump and Putin sat down, Putin gave his list of demands. Trump hit him with countermeasures, and it came down to really Putin and Trump making a deal. Like, this is the deal. Like, okay, these are the concessions that we'll get Zelensky to make under the auspices that we, as the American government, will do this for you. We'll drop sanctions. We'll open up our economic market to you and to other countries. You know, we'll put you under tariffs. You can put us under tariffs too, but we'll do an exchange of goods and services, because the only reason why there's really any conflict as far as with first world nations is all over finances and resources. So instead of fighting each other over it, let's just agree to divvy the stuff up. Even if we have to go into third world nations or developing countries and divvy the stuff up, but let's at least build up these countries. Let's not just force them to acquiesce to us like they were trying to do under the Biden administration, where they were trying to get them to accept homosexuality and all of that crazy stuff. Like, no more American military imperialism. Let's now build up the world. The world is better off when we don't have people shouting death to America while sitting in Congress, Ilhan Omar. It's better if we build these nations up. Let these people eat. Let them get a taste of what it feels like to walk the streets safely at night, like we're trying to do here in DC, which should not even be an issue. There should be a mandatory maximum for whatever crime you commit. Oh, buddy, littering, that's 60 days in jail. Like, literally. No, this is Washington, D.C. This is the capital of the country. It's where the president lives. Go ahead and throw a piece of paper on the ground in Dubai. See what happens to you. Do some crazy stuff over in Japan. See what happens to you. You see, you got that fool Johnny Somali over there in South Korea. This dude is looking at 30 years. They held his passport. He pled guilty to all those charges, and now he's waiting for sentencing. He's really hoping, praying, crying, peeing his pants that they just maybe throw him in jail for 3 months and deport him like Japan did. Yeah, they threw him in jail for 3 months in Japan, then they deported him. And that's how he wound up. I think he wound up going to Israel. He got chased up out of there real quick. I think they jumped him in Israel. And then he went to South Korea and started getting his face beat in before he was arrested. Vitali out there in the Philippines, acting a stone cold fool. That fool is now in prison. He's in a holding cell, which is like, they call it the gulag. It's so overcrowded because crime is so rampant there. I don't care what the passport bros tell you. There's a lot of crime in the Philippines, a lot of rampant crime. These guys are in jail, in holding cells for like 2 years before they see a judge, sleeping on top of each other, barely eating, rats and feces and urine puddles just everywhere. There's no pillows and 3 hots and a cot. What's up, Ron? Yeah, so you don't want to be over in other countries messing around. The United States, Washington, D.C., you should be scared to commit a crime in Washington, D.C., knowing that, oh man, I might get 3 years. I might get 3 years for getting a DUI. There is no, well, we're going to make you take a defensive driving course and put you on probation. No, you should be going to jail for DUI in Washington, D.C., but I digress.
Follow up. We know as of right now, there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelensky soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that
Haley,
rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency. Haley.
Why is it always a liberal reporter that does not do their homework? It's sitting right there in your press junket. The Zelensky was just in the White House yesterday. What the hell did you think they talked about? Valentine's Day chocolates? Their golf game? The smell of butter? what, I mean, good Lord, what a people say there are no stupid questions, but that's a lie.
Thanks, Caroline. You made clear no U.S. boots on the ground. Is the president considering U.S. boots in the air as a form of a security guarantee?
Look, that was something the president mentioned on his interview this morning. It is an option and a possibility. I won't certainly rule out anything as far as military options that the president has at his disposal. I'll let him do that. I can tell you he's definitively ruled out boots on the ground. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. Just about the possible venue for the talks. Can you confirm that Putin suggested Moscow as a venue for the bilateral talks? And if so, doesn't that indicate that Putin is perhaps not serious about this, that he's suggesting a venue that there's no way that Zelensky is going to go to?
Look, I'm not going to litigate the private conversations between the president and President Putin, aside from what the president himself has already spoken on. But I can tell you there are many options that are being discussed by our national security team right now with both parties.
I can tell you right now, Zelensky is not going to Russia. You can forget that. That's like, I mean, would you seriously go in your op's house? Would you go to your op's house? Talking about some, let's have a sit down. No. You know what? The only reason Putin came to the United States, came to Alaska, was number one, it's right next door. All right. You jump over three rocks and a few boulders, and he's back in Russia. I'm being facetious, of course. But no, but plus we're not at war with Russia. Zelensky is not. Again, people say there's no such thing as a stupid question, bro. No, no, even I would do that. No. Do you not watch these cop watch videos on YouTube? Do you not watch these violent TikToks? Come on, we're talking about leaders here. That's very stupid. Anyway.
That's an indication of where?
I just told you we'll provide you details as soon as we can. Thank you for trying, though. Libby.
Yes, thank you for trying.
I want to ask about the National Guard troops. How is the White House coordinating with how they're being placed in D.C., what areas? And then also, how long should people here in the district anticipate the National Guard to be on the ground patrolling the streets?
I don't have a timeline for you, Libby, but we will keep you posted on that. I think the president, as you know, and this administration, he came to this briefing room with members of his cabinet to lay out the rationale and the reasoning for federalizing the National Guard here in Washington, D.C., and for our work with the Metropolitan Police Department to make our district safer. We've seen violent crime has taken the lives of far too many residents here in our nation's capital, and the president wants to make it safe again. And as for for the coordination efforts. This interagency team is meeting and talking daily. In fact, there's a meeting taking place right now in the West Wing with members of the interagency task force to continue to discuss not just the National Guard deployment, but also how we can continue to remove public safety threats off of the streets of Washington, which, as the numbers I just showed you prove, they are doing every single night. I will just reiterate, 465 total arrests and counting since the start of this operation. I believe 11 or 12 days ago. I'll have to check the calendar, but those are pretty remarkable results. If not for this task force and their high level of coordination and the leadership of this president, there would have been 465 more violent criminals on the streets of this capital that you all live in every day. So I think we should all be very grateful for that. Stephen.
I'm going to say this now. I'm going to repeat this for the 5th time. And I was saying this last year when I had the Embraceability channel. Once I was saying that eventually they're going to change the crime laws. And when Trump got elected, I said, you know what? The last place you want to be is in front of a judge, 2025 and beyond. This situation in DC with the National Guard cleaning up the streets is really just the start. And I've said this, after watching all these crime videos of YNs just wilding out, because you don't see, and this is where black folks get rabbit ears. You don't see mobs of white teenagers robbing stores like you see the YNs, and that's both males and females, doing. You don't see them doing that. This is specifically a YN problem. All right. A lot of this crime is YN problems. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, it was leaked that 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was leaked that Trump was planning on using the National Guard to do sweeps through blue cities, through California, through Chicago, through Boston, through Denver, Tennessee, Ohio, Minnesota, New York, all of these so-called sanctuary cities. These Trump haters are unhinged. Yeah, well, they're going to use the National Guard to do sweeps to get these people, to get the illegals off the streets. And I guarantee you they're not going to stop there. Because as I was saying last year, and again earlier this year when Trump was elected, I said, I'm going to tell you right now, don't start screaming racism when he start locking up Pookie, Ray Ray, Glocktavius, and Felantonio. Don't start screaming racism because your baby daddy is getting locked up. Don't start screaming racism when your son goes to prison. But because they're done. They're done. I mean, they're literally done. This new Republican Party, this MAGA Trump Republican Party, they're trying to not only end poverty, but also end crime. And I know that it seems like a tall order. It seems like a tall order, but it's not. You've got, and it's going to take a second here, y'all. So, go ahead with your sandwich or a beer or whatever. We sat up here since 2018, 2019, crying about the behavior of black females. And the biggest problem that we have in black society is that black males or black men have been forced out of the household thanks to the Democratic Party, the most wickedest political party in the history of parties in the United States. The only reason why black people vote Democrat is because of your mama, your grandmama, and your great grandmama, who switched parties because of welfare. Feminism captured their hearts and minds, and the welfare paid for their quote unquote economic enslavement in which they thought was freedom. Section 8, welfare, SNAP. I mean, it was so ridiculous that you could pass your Section 8 voucher down to your children. Are you kidding me? I was invited on someone's YouTube channel and I got attacked. I can believe it. Like I said, black folks get rabbit ears when you start holding a mirror up to them. Simply for supporting the Trump tariffs. Yeah, like how dare you root for economic stability for the country, knowing damn well that 99.9% of Americans can't even go an hour without their lights being off, the internet being down. Cut off the cell phones and the internet and watch these people lose their freaking minds. Just do it for an hour. Watch them freak out. Watch them freak out. They'll be like spoiled 16-year-old girls. Excuse me, but I digress. No amount of getting up here on the mic and shaming women and talking about the ills of black society, that wasn't going to change a goddamn thing. I've been saying since 2018, what it's going to take in order to fix black society was legislation, not Kevin Samuels talking points. These chicks don't care. So when Trump came in, the first thing he did, one of the first things he did, they took the illegals off the Social Security rolls, and they're still doing that. They're still killing off these Social Security numbers for illegals. They're also going to remove people who are able-bodied off of Social Security benefits. If you can work, you're not getting these benefits. They cut Section 8 down to 2 years. They cut SNAP down to 2 years, and also you can't have any type of junk food. You can't buy junk food with SNAP anymore. So no more of Sharkeisha with a buggy full of junk food with 3 snot-nosed brats in tow that's damn near as big as her. No more of that. No more crab legs. No more ice cream, Twinkies, ho-ho, soda pop. No, that's done. That's been taxing the healthcare system. No more welfare. You get 2 years. You get 2 years to be on this stuff, and then you're done if you are work eligible. The only people who will get it long term are the mentally and physically disabled and the elderly. That's it. Nobody else. Your children, after the age of 7, you can no longer claim them as a dependent, to where you know how they were gaming the system. The more children you have, the more you get on your welfare check. Nope. After the age of 7, you no longer get those benefits. Remember, black women were crying, oh, what, so my child's supposed to go out and get a job? No, dummy, you are. Get 2. He's past the age of daycare. She's past the age of daycare. They're 7. Figure it out. Figure it out. You say moving black women off welfare moves them into proper society, like nursing homes and customer service, and they are horrible. I'd rather they stay on welfare. Well, here's the beauty of it, because It's a temporary situation. It's an 18-year situation as far as the dregs of society. Starting in 2026, all children, January 1st, 12:01 a.m., 2026, all children born will have $1,000 invested in their name in the S&P 500, and nobody will be able to touch it until that child is 18 years old, and only that child can touch it when they turn 18 years old. With the advent of the tariffs that are bringing manufacturing jobs back here, and I was discussing this with Lewis the other day, I'm saying maybe between mid-September and November, you should see a huge spike in factory jobs, warehouse jobs, office jobs from foreign companies. Because they're building those warehouses. But here's the thing. The reason why you don't see them right now, they have to build them from scratch. They have to get their materials in here, into the country. But they have to build all that stuff from scratch. There is no taking over an old factory and refurbishing it, and an old office building and refurbishing it. Nope. The deal is, with the tariffs, you come in here and you build this stuff from scratch, and you use American workers, American construction workers. If you know anybody in construction, they'll tell you, oh, especially where they're building these factories, like, man, there are jobs aplenty. Why do you think they're getting rid of the illegals so hard? No. These jobs are for Americans first and only, unless you have a green card or you've been naturalized. But if you are an illegal, you don't work here anymore. You're done. Those days are over. You're done. If you don't want to work, then you don't eat. You can starve, or you can go to prison, because you're probably likely to commit a crime. But this next crop of kids born in 2026 and beyond, by the time they turn 18, they won't be living in poverty. You think that S&P 500 won't grow with all of these factory jobs in the United States over the next 18 years? With more factories, I'm pretty sure there's going to be factories after factories after factories moving into the United States. My U.S. Steel, which wound up merging with Nippon, Japanese Steel, oh man, I was cleaning up. I was cleaning up because of all these factories that are being built. But I digress. All these welfare queens, it's over. It's D-Day for you. Get up off your butt and get a job. Get up off your butt and get a job. I'd advise you to get into some type of low budget school where the highest loan that you take out is like maybe $10,000 or something. Learn how to learn some type of computer skills. Like Joe Biden said, learn the code. Learn to do something. Because D-Day is here. As of next year, 2 years is what you got. 2 years. Is there going to be a mass flow of prostitution, more so than there is now? Yes. The trade-off is that men, most particularly black men, since we're black, a lot of us are unskilled labor because of the educational system, because of our upbringings. But you don't need a college degree to drive a forklift. Hell, you don't even need a high school diploma to learn how to drive a forklift, how to load and unload a truck, how to be a picker. Get your CDLs. Get your CDLs. Do something. Learn how to be an electrician. Find your way into a carpentry job, do some cement work, something. Now is the time. You see, they're hiring ICE agents like crazy. For those of you that are former military, police, or even a security guard, as long as your background check comes back clean and you can pass a lie detector test, you're, as far as like, you know, will you take money from the cartel, or are you a silly, you know, stolen land idiot? Is that what you believe in? You know what I'm saying? Did you have one of those silly bull nose piercings? Have you ever dyed your hair blue? You know, as long as you can pass those background checks, you got a job. Anyway, let's get to it.
Thank you, Caroline. 3 questions about the DC crackdown.
Sure.
First, I was wondering if you could clarify something President Trump said. He mentioned getting rid of the slums where criminals live. Was he talking about tents or permanent residential buildings? And then the mayor has expressed an interest in clarifying how much of a focus illegal immigration enforcement is as part of this crackdown. Can you say anything about that?
Sure.
And third, any preview on the beautification?
3 questions. I'll try to answer all 3 of them pointedly for you. First, when it comes to what you said, and the president said, the slums of Washington, D.C., he's referring to the most dangerous communities, neighborhoods, and streets in the city where, unfortunately, violence has ravaged these communities and taken the lives of, again, far too many law-abiding D.C. residents. We know on July 5th of this year, just more than a month ago, a 3-year-old beautiful young girl was shot and killed in her car with her family in one of these communities, which is why there has been a surge, despite what many of you have been falsely reporting. And I believe it was the Washington Post who put out a map claiming it to be fact-based when it was just based on, I don't know, accounts that they've heard on the street, not actual statistics and data. So we went and reconfigured the numbers. And as I said, nearly half of all the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8 in the District of Columbia, where we know, excuse me, there's the highest rate of crime. So we'll continue to do that. And what was your second question, Stephen?
Legal immigration, how much of a focus that is?
Yeah, look, I mean, the focus is to make DC safe and beautiful and to remove public safety threats and violent criminals from our streets. If federal law enforcement, with the help of the Metropolitan Police Department, come across illegal aliens, of course, we are going to abide by this administration's policy of law and order, and we are going to remove illegal criminals from our nation's capital. They will be detained and deported, just like they are in every other community across the country. Kristen.
First question is, whose idea was it to change the next steps from a trilateral to a bilateral meeting?
It was an idea that evolved in the course of the president's conversations with both President Putin, President Zelensky, and the European leaders yesterday. And as you saw, Kristen, with all of those European leaders leaving the White House, including the NATO Secretary General, they all agreed that this is a great first step. And it's a good thing that these 2 leaders are going to be sitting down together, and the president expects that to happen.
And how long is Trump willing to wait and operate in good faith for Putin to actually arrange a meeting before he intervenes?
Look, the president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close. He's taken actions, as you've seen, sanctions on India and other actions as well. He's made himself very clear that he wants to see this war end. And he has scoffed at the ideas of others that have been raised that we should wait another month before any meeting takes place. The president wants to move, and he wants to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible.
Just a clarification on something you said earlier about Putin agreeing to the meeting. The Kremlin seemed to indicate that Putin did not firmly agree to a bilateral. Did he agree to have a sit down with just Zelensky on the phone?
I can assure you that the United States government and the Trump administration is working with both Russia and Ukraine to make that bilateral happen as we speak. Sean.
If the point is to get everybody on the same page, why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean.
Wow.
The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President
He is
Putin
brutal.
on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single one of them got on a plane 48 hours later and flew to the United States of America. And if I could just read for all of you some of the statements from those European leaders yesterday, you had President Zelensky himself saying it was a very good conversation. It was really good. We spoke about very sensitive points. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, it was the president, only because of the president, that this deadlock was broken, but with President Putin by starting a dialogue. So these leaders, who this war is in their backyard, are very grateful that the president took that call and that he was there to provide them with a readout of Russia's thinking on this, something that was not done by the previous administration at all. Catherine.
Thank you. Is the White House looking at Budapest as a possible location?
I'm not going to confirm or deny locations. We'll provide you with details as soon as we can.
On Kristen's question, I understand that the White House is working and allies are working to make this meeting happen, but did Putin promise to do a meeting with Zelensky, a direct meeting in the coming weeks?
He has, and I just answered that question for you. Franco.
Thanks. I just want to clarify. So you are saying that President Trump is considering U.S. pilots and U.S. aircraft potentially supporting European or Ukrainian forces?
The president spoke to that himself this morning when he called into Fox and Friends, and I would defer you to his answer. You can read it directly yourself.
In addition, can I ask, no boots on the ground, Steve Witkoff's talking about Article 5-like security guarantees. Can you talk about what other Article 5-like security guarantees that are being considered if it's not boots on the ground?
These are very sensitive diplomatic discussions that are currently taking place literally as we speak. So I will leave it to the national security team, and I'll leave it to the president to have those private discussions with these leaders as we try to bring this war to an end.
Yes,
Mary Margaret, go ahead.
Thanks,
No, you're
Caroline.
done.
Two questions, if that's okay. So on these meetings, I know you said that the trilateral will take place if necessary. Do you think that we might not need the trilateral and that Zelensky and Putin might come to this conclusion on their own? And then as a follow-up, I know the president said on Fox News this morning that he's partially seeking peace in order to get to heaven. Was he joking, or is there spiritual motivation behind his peace deals here?
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well. Annie.
Thanks, Caroline. I'm just shifting gears to the Department of Justice for a minute. Can you walk us through why another deputy FBI director was named? Does Trump have any displeasure with how the FBI has been being run to date? And I have a question about the antitrust.
No, Andrew Bailey is extremely qualified. As you know, he's been serving with honor as the Attorney General of Missouri, and he's been brought on as another set of very credible and experienced hands to work alongside the current Deputy Director, Dan Bongino, under the leadership of the Director, Kash Patel, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And the FBI has been doing a tremendous job. We've seen their agents out on the streets as part of this interagency task force here in Washington. But the crime that they've been stopping here in Washington, they've been doing this for 7 months all across the country. In fact, there's been 19,000 arrests by the FBI nationwide. That's more than double last year in the same time period. Of those, 1,600 arrests were for violent crimes against children. 4,000 child victims have been rescued by this FBI under this current leadership. 1,000 arrests from investigations of foreign terrorist organizations. There's been 1,500 kilos of fentanyl seized. 6,300 kilos of meth have been seized, and 3 of the top 10 most wanted have been arrested so far. Not a single one of the individuals on the top 10 most wanted list were arrested under the previous administration. We've arrested 3 in 7 months. So when you're actually working and enforcing law and order, you need all hands on deck. And so we look forward to welcoming Andrew Bailey to this new post. Jackie.
I have a quick question about Roger Alfred, who's a former.
I mean, before she gets into that, like I said, Trump, his mission is to clean up America. He is not playing. He is not playing. And to watch the Democrats, really Democratic leaders and these paid agitators to watch, and silly people like, well, Roland Martin is a paid agitator. Let's just be honest. I mean, Kamala Harris, he's in her back pocket, as is Charlemagne and whatnot. All of these people, they're all frauds. They're all paid fraudsters that are designed to lead us astray. They have a problem with legislation being used with boots on the ground, since that's the most popular thing to say, cleaning up crime, stopping crime. They have a serious problem with that, which should tell you a lot.
DOJ official. He gave a speech in Aspen yesterday where he said that senior DOJ aides are cutting deals with favored lobbyists. I'm wondering if the president has any concerns at all with the way the antitrust division is working.
I have no idea who that individual is. I don't know why he made those comments. I don't know what basis he's making those comments on. My instinct tells me it's not true, but we will definitely look into them and I'll get you a response. Jackie.
Thanks, Caroline. Since the president often says that this war would not have started if he were in office, and
True.
And Putin confirmed that.
It's true. Do you accept that as true? The
Probably.
European leaders do.
Well,
and President Putin himself said that, by the way.
He did say that. The question I have, though, is what is the president going to do to ensure that these security guarantees last beyond him into the time when he is no longer president? And does that have to involve Congress at all?
Well, he understands the need for that, which he spoke to yesterday. And what's he going to do? It's why he's engaging in so many talks and so many conversations with both sides of this war with our European allies. It's why on the way home from Anchorage, Alaska, very late at night, when I know many of you on the press plane were sleeping and many staff were sleeping, the president himself was still awake at 2 o'clock in the morning talking to European leaders and NATO about how we can ensure a lasting peace and bring this conflict to an end. He has expended an incredible amount of time, energy, and effort into bringing this war to an end, and he remains determined to do that.
Also, can
Go
I ask
ahead.
you about the
Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
DC crime?
Sure, Jake, and then to your right.
Sure. Thank you, Caroline. Which of the half dozen peace deals that the president's pulled off would you say he's the most proud of? And then I have another question.
That's a good question, Jake. I'll leave that to the president to answer. I think he's proud of all of the peace deals that he's been able to achieve. You saw the president of Armenia and the head of Azerbaijan, both at the White House just a couple of weeks ago. The president, I know, very much enjoyed spending time with them and helping to bring that conflict to an end. He very much enjoyed his time with leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the Oval Office, talking to them about bringing.
Yeah, can we laugh at Trump? Trump stopped black on black crime in Africa with the peace deal between Rwanda and the Congo, simply by saying, hey, look, we'll divvy up your mineral rights. We'll come in and dig up your soil and give you all equal share of your mineral rights, 50-50. We'll even build up your infrastructure. Because that's what they're fighting over there. They're fighting for control of resources. What they feel are limited resources, but Trump's coming there like, man, we got diggers and movers and shakers, and man, we'll come in there. You guys, within 10 years, trust me, your children will be thanking us. Your country will not look like it did today. You won't have men running around here with AK-47s, wife beater, sweats, and dress shoes with no socks. Those days are over.
That decades-long war to an end, India and Pakistan. He used trade in a very powerful way as leverage to bring that conflict to an end. So I know he's very proud of all of these achievements, and I know he's very honored to serve as the president of the United States and to restore peace around this world. Go ahead.
So you mentioned Armenia and Azerbaijan. That's a conflict that, I spent time in the Southern Caucasus covering that. And, a conflict of over 30 years, and he resolved it in just a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Are there other conflicts that the president's working on right now that are off the radar screen that we should be tracking?
In fact, there are many. The State Department is always working around the clock under the leadership of Secretary Rubio and keeping the president apprised of conflicts that are bubbling up all over the world. But of course, as you all know, as we've talked a lot about in this briefing, he's spending a lot of time right now on ending this war in Russia, Ukraine, and of course the conflict in Israel and Gaza, which he wants to see come to a close as well. Sure, go ahead.
So the president says that he's starting a movement to eliminate mail-in voting, but states administer elections, not federal authorities. So can you provide any more details about how the White House plans to eliminate that?
The White House continues to work on this, and when Congress comes back to Washington, I'm sure there will be many discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill and also our friends in state legislatures across the country to ensure that we're protecting the integrity of the vote for the American people. And I think Republicans generally, and the president generally, wants to make it easier for Americans to vote and harder for people to cheat in our elections. And it's quite mind-boggling that the Democrat Party could stand in opposition to common sense. He wants to ensure election integrity. There were great efforts that were made in 2024. I won't get ahead of myself for Hatch Act reasons to get ahead for the next election, but I can assure you this is a priority for the president. Go ahead.
If I could just follow up on your comments about Gaza.
Sure.
There was a ceasefire proposal put forward by both Qatar and Egypt. Hamas accepted it on Monday. Israel has yet to officially weigh in. I'm wondering if the U.S. was at all involved in it, if it's supportive of it, and whether or not the president believes Israel should accept it.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Hamas accepted this proposal after the president of the United States posted a very strong statement about this conflict on Truth Social yesterday. I would refer you back to that statement. As for this proposal that Hamas has now accepted, the United States continues to discuss it, and I'll let the president weigh in on it definitively. You're welcome. Sure.
Caroline, can you describe the president's perspective on taking a stake in Intel in exchange for federal grants? And is this are we expecting to see the White House make similar arrangements with other semiconductor companies and manufacturing companies?
Well, the president, he's been very clear about the need to reshore manufacturing that's critical to our national and economic security. That is especially in regards to chips and semiconductors, which is why the president has initiated the Commerce Department to conduct a study on semiconductors, a Section 232 investigation, so we can ultimately implement tariffs. And it's why our export license requirements remain in place as well. As for this 10% government stake deal, the Department of Commerce continues to work on it. I know Secretary Lutnick is working on it and ironing out the details, but the president wants to put America's needs first, both from a national security and economic perspective. And it's a creative idea that has never been done before to ensure that we're both reshoring these critical supply chains while also gaining something of it for the American taxpayer. You're welcome. Emily.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the 3 U.S. warships that are being sent to Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at possibility of boots on the ground there?
What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country. And with that, I will leave you all, and we will see you later.
Yeah, like I said, Trump is cracking down on crime. This is why he used the Alien Enemies Act on the cartel in Tren de Alagra. Currently, Trump has waged a war on the cartel. This is why you see them out in California, Arizona, whatnot, hitting up businesses, because they're connected to the cartel. They're money laundering, human trafficking, underground operations. That's something that the alphabet media will not report on. And you know, ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, etc. They won't report on that. Oh, he was a hard working migrant. This dude was cartel affiliated. What are you talking about? So currently there's a war on the cartel, and it looks like now they are going to free the Venezuelans from Maduro and his criminal organization. today, that me hearing that right now, that's news to me. That's news to me, but the play is so obvious. And this is why I was telling people, I'm like you guys, like, this is the U.S. military. This is the mightiest military in the world. They're going down there with a battleship and 17,000 troops. They probably don't even need all 17,000 troops. But they're going to go down there and they are going to wipe Maduro and his criminal organization off the map. And we're going to war with Venezuela. That's like you going to war with a 6-month-old. Mike Tyson going to war with a 6-month-old. Like, are you kidding me? It's not a war. It's practice. We talking about practice. At any rate, so it's late. I guess I will catch y'all later. You all be safe out here, all right? Peace.
There's a gleam, man. There's a gleam. Let's get the gleam, all right? Let's go.
It's that DC council member who suggested that the military should respond to this crime wave.
I know those who live here know that we are clearly in a war zone. Absolutely. I'm gonna say it again. We are clearly in a war zone.
Told them whatever happens, you know, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face. And then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard.
That's what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. You understand that?
When he says, oh, you know, it's Liberation Day and all of these things, those are, you know, ways of him saying, oh, it's white power, it's what I want to do. Those are racist remarks. His number one targets are cities that are led by Black mayors.
That's right.
His number one targets are cities
right.
that are sanctuary cities that, you know, support immigration. People always want to hype DC up and want to come to DC so bad, but this the shit we deal with. This the shit I wake up to in the morning. My fucking window's busted out when I'm trying to go to fucking work. Shit is fucking insane.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe. I'm a Black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So what is it about talking about places like Southeast DC, right? Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe. I think we have to rethink what safety means in America.
Do you not understand that this is what the residents want? I'm not talking about the bougie upper echelons, bougie Blacks. I'm talking about the everyday grandmas that have to deal with these homeless people peeing and pooping on their steps, and then they have to clean it up. They don't feel safe when they walk into their neighborhood. The gangs and the dope boys are just standing around the corner. You know, like, do you not understand this is what they want? I remember working with a community leader and somebody had just gotten shot. This is like 5 years ago. And I remember her praying and she said, Crystal, we're gonna have to invoke the National Guard. And that was so foreign to me. Now I understand the shit. These people are helpless. And I'm not talking about the bougie Black people that live in their gated communities with their new bills. I'm talking about the everyday grandmothers. And I'm so glad that President Trump cares about them.
Man, down the city is quiet as a church mouse, man. I came all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning. So peaceful, man. I don't smell no weed, yo. I don't see no homeless people. I mean, I came all the way through the southeast side, all the way down here. You can see now I'm at the White House, jump, man. It's quiet, yeah. It's a shame that it takes somebody to have to sit in your classroom in order for you to be in order, man. Because that's what it feels like, man. You gotta be babysitting to do your job, man. Stuff been out of control for years. You gotta do better, man. You gotta do better. And mainly, then you got the problem is us, man. It's always us giving everybody a bad name, man. We'll see how long this lasts, man. How many murders was it last night? How many carjackings was it last night? Talk to me. And y'all keep on posting all these data numbers and things of that nature that y'all see everybody else reposting. The stuff that came from the Metropolitan Police Department and the mayor, yeah. Let me tell you something, yeah. Let me tell you something. You can't be that stupid. You can't be, man. Who enters that information to get that data analysis, yeah? People do. You can enter whatever numbers you want to make whatever report show what, but you can't hide the crime, yeah? You can't do it. Let me give you something to break it down to you for those that don't understand. I retired from UPS, right? So what they used to do to play with the numbers or whatever, we had mission packages, you would have drivers over the hours. They'd go in and enter the information and the report would show whatever they needed to show to keep their bonus that week for their bosses not to fire their ass. So stop believing that stuff. And I don't know if you ever had to deal with the DC government, young, but they suck, young. They have got a lot more better now that the officers have did what they had to do and got all these people out of the government and got rid of the riffraff and things of that nature. People actually do work now. Let me give you this for example, right? You got carry and conceals or whatever that were being issued by the DC separate department that was handling the gun license and the things of that nature. They went from turnaround time for like 4 months, 5 months for you to have to get a gun registered in DC and get a carry and conceal to 2 weeks. It used to take you 3 months just to get an appointment to talk to somebody and take your information and your gun down there. Now, you go online right now and they got appointments available tomorrow. How does that happen? What changed? You put some fire under their asses and now they want to do some work.
And if you really want to know who the criminals are in this country, you can Google it. You don't have to trust me. But the people that commit 80% of the most violent crimes in this country are white supremacists. Yet.
I mean, we just want volunteers, not hostages.
All right, bye. Thanks for the fun.